loud and cool Tuesday morning. Welcome on into the Bullpen. I am your host, Adam the Bull, and we are brought to you by, I'm pointing in the wrong direction, Bet Rivers. There you go. You think I'd figure this out after 2 years, which direction to point in, or pointing down. There you go, Bet Rivers. Oh, no, wrong way. There you go. One of these days I'll get it right. Who knows? If you're not using the Bet Rivers app, you're missing out. And by the way, speaking of Bet Rivers, I've got 3 shows on the Bet Rivers network today. Obviously, we got the live show this morning. Mary Kay Cabot's going to join me in about 10 minutes. We'll talk about the Cavs, and then we'll talk some Browns with Mary Kay, and we'll finish it off with some Guardians. At 2 p.m. Eastern, if you are a baseball bettor, or even if you're just a baseball fan, you're going to want to watch this show. You see it right there. Betting Weekly Hardball. It's on Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. I will be the co-host Tuesday through Thursday at 2 p.m. Doug Kasarian, longtime ESPN guy. Doug now with us at Bet Rivers. He's a gambling guru. He's out of Vegas. You know Doug. If you don't think you know him, when you see him, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I know that guy. So Doug's on every day, Monday through Friday. And I'll be with him Tuesday through Thursday every week at 2 p.m. We'll have game picks. We'll have parlays, props, all kinds of fun stuff. So join me then. And then tonight, the third Bet Rivers show of the day, I'll be back on with Max and Z tonight, who are producing the show. And we'll have the post-game, Game 2, Cavs-Pacers. Now, you see the line there. It has remained unchanged. The Cavs lost Game 1, unfortunately. The line immediately here at Bet Rivers went to Cavs by 9, and it has remained unchanged. The over-under is 229.5. And so it's first of all, this second round of the playoffs so far has been fascinating. The top 3 teams in the NBA all season long, the Cavs, the Thunder, and the Celtics, all lost their first games. We already know what happened Sunday night with the Cavs. Last night, if you missed it, an amazing comeback by the Knicks to beat the Celtics in the Game 1 of that series. And then more high drama late last night as the Nuggets scored 36 in the final quarter and 71 in the second half to beat the Thunder 121-19. So far in the second round, all 3 road teams have won. By the way, Jokic last night, 42 points, 22 rebounds, 6 assists. SGA had 33, 10, and 8 in the loss. So we've just had some great games. Tonight, of course, Game 2, Cavs-Pacers at 7 p.m. And then Game 1 of Warriors and Timberwolves in Minnesota is tonight at 9:30. So, again, I'll be on after the game. Now, when the Celtics and Thunder both lose, it's kind of got to make you feel a little better. Like there was a lot of sky is falling after the Cavs lost the first game. And you see other 2 really good teams, including Boston especially, who is the defending champs. And they blew a big lead to a team that has not played good against good teams all year. So that really stands out. And it makes you think, well, okay, as bad as the first loss was, we've seen the 2 other top teams lose, so you got to feel better. And in theory, I feel better. Now, I was the one on Sunday night saying, don't panic. This is ridiculous. People writing off the team after 1 game. I still had a high level of confidence even after the first loss. And I told you on Sunday night, I guarantee the Cavs win and cover. And I'm going to stand by that. But I have to admit, I'm not as confident not because anything has changed in terms of what I feel about this team, but what's changed is the injury report. Darius Garland, who's already missed the last 3 games, we know he's dealing with a significant toe injury, is questionable for the game tonight. So he could make his first appearance in nearly 2 weeks. Tomorrow will be 2 weeks since he last played. But in addition to Darius Garland, DeAndre Hunter and Evan Mobley are dealing with injuries also. including, Mobley dealing with an ankle injury here. We saw DeAndre Hunter get the tar beat out of him in that first game. And so those guys are both questionable as well. Now, and even if they play, how healthy are they going to be? We'll see. I think if you're out there, I don't make excuses for injury. If you can't play, you can't play. But obviously, this is going to be hanging over the game, or over the pregame until we know what the status is. Now, apparently, when he was talking yesterday, the Cavs, Kenny Atkinson said that those three guys are questionable for the game. But he also, at another point in that same conversation, said they were doubtful. Now, are they actually doubtful? And he didn't want to say it, and that slipped out? Or was that a mistake? I don't know. But the fact that three of your five best players or three of your six best players are dealing with injuries is concerning. And it's so frustrating because the Cavs were a healthy team all season long. They played the season so smart. They won a ton of games. They were smart with the minutes. Nobody got overworked all season. And now what's the payoff? Nothing. Well, the playoffs are more physical, and it's led to some injuries here. And ultimately, there becomes a point where there's just so many injuries you can overcome. If all three guys are out tonight, I'm not going to say the Cavs have no shot, but obviously, without those three guys, you're talking about your second and third best players in Mobley and Garland, and then, probably your fifth best player. You want to say six behind Ty Jerome, whatever. That's three of your top six. I know you got Donovan Mitchell, but it's going to be hard. So I think we've all got our fingers crossed, or whatever you believe in, that these guys will be able to play. And like I said, if Hunter and Mobley and Garland are out there, I'm going to assume they're well enough to play, and I'm going to expect them to play well, even with dealing with nagging injuries. This is the end. The guys have been playing all year. Halliburton's banged up, and he played great in the first game. So if you're out there, I'm expecting you to play well. I think it's that simple. So if you're out there, I'm expecting you to get the job done. And if you can't, you shouldn't play. So there's no excuses once you're on the floor, in my mind. Let's go to the chat here before we bring in Mary Kay shortly. Corey says, "What's up, Bull? Good morning." What's up, Corey? Good morning to you. Let's see. Corey, top of the morning. Another Corey. Crazy legs. Not if they have three starters out. Yeah. It changes the dynamic. As great as Donovan Mitchell is, I don't. If all three guys are out, I don't see how the Cavs win this game. And if all three guys are out, the Cavs are probably going to lose this series. And what a mess that would be. But as of now, the fact that we still have the line at 9 gives me hope that the guys who make the lines are optimistic that the Cavs will play, and I'm optimistic. I don't have any inside information, but my gut tells me that all three guys will play tonight. I think Darius Garland probably could have played if he had to in game 1, and I think, like I said last week, the Cavs were being smart about it. They were not going to use him unless they felt like they had to, and now they do. John says, if you want to make big money, bet on the Pacers to win outright. Well, I'm not saying it's the worst bet right now because we don't know if three key guys are going to play. Z says, how about those Maple Leafs? I'm sorry, Z, but I don't think this audience is that into hockey. I couldn't even tell you who else is in the NHL playoffs. I probably should, but 5-4. Although they almost let it get away, right? Up 4-1. So the When's the last time the Leafs played for a Stanley Cup? The last time they were in the Stanley Cup. Been a long time, right? Oh yeah, so folks, you can't hear Z. He's a producer. Last time they won the cup was '67. I know it's been a while. Okay. RDY70. That non-call versus Hunter shows as long as you touch the ball on a block attempt, you do whatever you want with the other hand. Yeah, I was surprised they didn't get a foul there, but I think complaining about referees is loser talk. I don't like that at all. I don't understand that. I heard my guys Lyman Ken arguing about it today. Lyman was right about that. That game had zero to do with the refs. Williams says Cavaliers doing the same crap they do every year. They bet on the other team to beat them, and they collect their what? Give me a break. Crazy leg. Side note about the Browns: don't think Harold Fannin gets any run at receiver this year. He's a tight end. He's not a receiver. Ryan says if Mobley is out, Wade has got to step up. I mean, come on. Are you really going to expect Dean Wade to do what Evan Mobley can do? No way. Mary Kay's having a little trouble with the email. Z, was it you that sent her the email? Okay. Yeah, so we'll have Mary Kay on shortly. She texted me, and we want to get her on, so that's why that's the beautifulness, is that a word, of live podcasting. Let me talk about the Guardians for a minute. I was going to talk about the Guardians at the end, but I'll talk about them for a minute here instead while we get Mary Kay up, because I saw a question about the Guardians. Corey says, how do you feel about the right field position? Obviously, right field's been ugly. John Kenzie's been terrible. Nolan Jones has been terrible. I still believe in Nolan Jones. I think the Browns need to stick with I think the Guardians need to stick with Nolan Jones. I think he's going to come around. The outlying analytics or the are good on him. He's making hard contact. If you're consistently making hard contact, eventually you're going to have some luck go your way. He's been very unlucky so far. That's how I see it. Guardians have a doubleheader today. First game at 3:35. Luis Ortiz and Jake Irvin will pitch in that one. Those were supposed to be the starters last night. And then the second game will be at 7:30 tonight. It'll be Lively against Brad Lord. There you go. All right. Now, from the Cavs to the Guardians to the Browns. We're now joined by Browns beat reporter Mary Kay Cabot, Cleveland.com. Hi, Mary Kay. How are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Bull?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for joining me live this morning. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And I want to get right into it because we've talked so much before the draft. There's so much leading up to it. And then for all the predictions and thoughts, then the draft happens and so many things you didn't expect to happen. Let's start with, obviously, Shedeur Sanders, who for months people were talking about a first-round pick. Obviously, he ends up in the 5th round. It was a shocker. Maybe it shouldn't have been. I think he probably dropped further than he would have because of what's considered distractions. But in the end, none of that matters. He's a Browns quarterback. He's apparently competing for the job. What's your thoughts on the Browns drafting Shedeur and his possibilities of making the team?
Well, I think once he got to the 5th round, they looked at it and said, this is absolutely, utterly ridiculous that he's fallen this far and that no one will touch him like he's a hot potato. And I think what happened there is when the teams that spent a ton of time on him and were poised to draft him wouldn't touch him, then I think everybody else said, well, why should we? We didn't spend all this time with him. They must know something that we don't know.
Right.
So I think all of those teams kind of passed on him. And then there were the teams where he made it clear to them that he wasn't maybe putting his best foot forward in some of the interviews because maybe he didn't want to go to them. So I think a lot of things conspired for him to drop into the 5th round. But once he got to that point, the Browns felt it was a no-brainer for them to take a player that they had ranked significantly higher than that. Not 94, because that's where they took Dylan Gabriel, but they had him ranked significantly higher than that, and they felt that that was just too good to pass up at that point.
And really, there's no downside to this move, right? If it works out, great. Maybe he becomes a steal. Maybe this is what finally ends their drought at quarterback. And if he doesn't work out, okay, it's a fifth-round pick. A good chunk of fifth-round picks don't work out anyway for most teams.
Right. They took a flyer on him in
Yeah.
the 5th round. And the thing about the Cleveland Browns is they're not worried about the noise. They're not worried about the smoke. If anyone can handle quarterback noise and drama and distraction, it's the Cleveland Browns. They can teach a master class in dealing with this sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Going all the way back to Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Watson. This is chump change to them. I mean, this is almost nothing. So they're not worried about the entourage. They're not worried about the distractions or any of that stuff.
Mary Kay, I know you've said consistently, you and Jason Lloyd have consistently said you think Kenny Pickett's got the best chance to start. I think this quarterback competition, and I hope it really is a competition. I hope they really allow all four guys to compete and let the best man win. So be it. But I had Joe Flacco on the podcast last week, and I asked him, do you believe this is a real competition? And he said, hey, the Browns told me it's a real competition. Do you believe that all four guys will get a legitimate shot to compete, not only to be on the roster, but to be a starter?
I do think that all four guys will have a legitimate shot to compete. Yes, I do believe that. Now, I also believe that there are sort of front runners going
Sure.
into this thing. I don't think it's a 100% level playing field. We know that it's not. All you have to do is look at the rookies to realize it's not a level playing field there. They passed on Shedeur 6 times and they took Gabriel at number 94. So we know that in at least their minds at this point, he is ahead of Shedeur. We know that they went out and aggressively pursued Kenny Pickett right at the start of the league year. So we know that he is really, for all intents and purposes, ahead of Joe Flacco as they head into the competition.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that it will be an open competition and anyone can come from behind to win it. But I don't think they are all starting out on a level playing field.
We know, I assume that of the four guys, Dylan Gabriel, he's going to be on the team. He was a third-round pick. So I'm assuming he's a lock for the roster. Nothing more than that in year one, but a lock for the roster. So I guess the question is, let's assume one of the veterans is the starter week one, because that's probably most likely. I guess you never know. But do you think, if whether it's Flacco or Pickett, do you think the loser of the veteran competition is almost certainly gone from the roster and that they'll definitely keep the two rookies? Or do you think there's a chance, maybe if Shedeur, really doesn't look good, that they could cut him or move on from him and keep the two veterans and Gabriel?
I think anything can happen. It
Okay.
really depends on these guys. If Shador comes in here and makes sure that he deserves a spot on this team, and if he can prove that he's legendary and all of those other things that he truly believes that he is, then I think that he can find a spot on this roster. But he's going to have to work very, very, very hard at it. I do think there is a world in which they can trade one of the veterans, and it would seem to me that they like Kenny Pickett so much that it would be Joe Flacco who would most be inclined to leave. And I remember last year at the cutdown date, they were willing to trade Jameis Winston, even though I caused a little bit of a flap with writing that and saying that.
Yeah.
But that was really the case. They
Yeah.
would have been willing to do that. And I think they'll be willing to do it again. And also, if you keep four on the roster heading into the season and you can hang on to that for a little bit, you just might have a quarterback injury that happens and
Right.
someone will give you something pretty decent for one of those guys.
Right. Plus, all four guys got to stay healthy. If one of them gets hurt, then the thing solves itself. But yes, you're right. Either Pickett or Flacco could potentially be trade chips if one or the other wins the job. It's just going to be it's going to be fascinating. It's going to be an interesting storyline, and I think there's going to be in the fan base a mix of who people are rooting for, I guess. But ultimately, the best man's got to win. That's it. It's got to be about who does the best, not who's got the biggest name, not who's got None of them are really making any significant money, but the Browns need to just pick the guy that gives them the best chance to win. End of conversation to me.
Well, that is true,
Yeah.
but that is a little bit harder than it might seem
Oh
at
yeah,
first.
sure.
Because here's the thing, training camp's not going to really tell you anything.
Mm,
You can be a training camp superstar,
sure.
and then you get out into the games and they game plan for you. They identify your weaknesses, and then you don't look good on Sunday afternoon. So that's going to be the hard part in all of this
Yeah.
is the person who wins this job can't just be a training camp phenom, can't be a preseason game phenom. You've got to go out there and get the job done on Sundays when the fur is flying, the lights are on, and all of those other things. I've had people tell me, hey, Kenny Pickett's going to look amazing in training camp and he's going to, probably really pull out in front of the pack. But
Hmm.
then you've got to see what he can do on game day. And that is the whole key to this whole thing.
Mary Kay, of the Browns, there are 5 other picks besides the 2 quarterbacks. Which is your favorite of the other guys?
Well, I would have to say that right now I'm most intrigued by Quinshawn Judkins. I'm very intrigued by him because I think he can almost single-handedly transform the running game. And that's what they really need. I've been watching a little bit of him. Even if you just watch him work out, he's a workout warrior. He's a 600-pound squatter. He's got some of those Nick Chubb traits and qualities about him. And he's just someone that I think can come in here right away as a rookie and make a very, very profound impact on this football team.
Yeah, if you're in a fantasy football like dynasty league or keeper league and you're doing a rookie draft, Quinshawn Judkins should be high up on that list. I'm with you. He's my favorite pick of the draft too. And I think the guy's going to be a beast. And yeah, I thought the same thing as you. I could see him being a Nick Chubb type of back. That's a lot of pressure to put on a guy, obviously, because Nick Chubb is an all-time back. But he looks like a super talent. And you're right. And at that position, more than any other, you can make an impact right away because there's really you don't see the learning curve at running back as much as you see it at other positions. Isn't that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Yeah.
And when you're dealing with a offensive line like the Browns have,
Yeah.
then you really have something to work with there. And so I think that makes a big difference in this whole thing too. They have a great offensive line. They've got all pros, Pro Bowlers, and it's really a nice line to run behind. They have a new offensive line coach. They're going back
Yeah.
to their wide zone running scheme, and so there's just a whole lot of reasons why things should go pretty well for Quinshawn Judkins.
This doesn't really have to do with the draft, but you mentioned the offensive line, so I just want to follow up. My one concern, obviously, on the offensive line is at left tackle, which has been an issue. Obviously, the rest of their offensive line has been pretty strong, especially with Conklin bouncing back last year, finally staying healthy and solidifying that line, and obviously Bitonio choosing not to retire. DeJuan Jones, when he's been fully healthy, has looked like a potential, at the very least, solid starter at left tackle. But obviously, he's had a hard time staying healthy. He's obviously huge. How confident are you? How confident do you think the Browns are that he can stay healthy and solidify that spot? And do you think there's any chance they bring back Jed Wills?
Well, I think the Browns are very optimistic about DeWand, but also cautiously optimistic because he hasn't shown yet that he can stay healthy. So they did sign a tackle in free agent
Yeah.
with a ton of starting experience, and they are ready to roll with him if in the event that they need to.
Yeah.
So they're good there. I don't really see them bringing back Jed. I
Yeah.
guess the only way that they would do that is if they could get him at an absolute bargain basement price, and they bring him back in closer to the start of the season or something along those lines. They're not opposed to it, but I don't think it's likely at the moment.
I want to talk about the linebacker Carson Schlesinger, who they drafted in the second round. I was a little surprised they went at that position, but the more I read about this guy, the more impressed I was, and I feel like he's a good fit and a good culture fit. And we talked about this before the draft with Travis Hunter, and obviously they didn't take him, but the Browns need some culture changers on this roster. and he seems like the type of guy. If you give me your thoughts on him and also what you think it says about JOK's status that they drafted him, if anything at all.
Well, I think people are going to be really, really impressed with Carson. The Browns absolutely love him. He's got a lot of range. I think he's going to be one of those linebackers that does show up and make an impact right away. I think he's going to be in the lineup from the jump, and I think he's going to be a playmaker for them. And he's really super smart. He can be one of those green dot guys. He can
Mm-hmm.
be a defensive quarterback on the field. He plays very, very fast. And I just think that he's going to be able to do a lot of things. He can cover. He can do all kinds of different things. And I think that people are really going to end up liking him. As far as what it means for JOK, we've been saying all along that JOK is very iffy for this season. We have no idea if he's returning this season. The Browns have said the same thing. It's a nebulous timeline, and therefore you have to
Yeah.
move on without him. If he comes back at some point, then it's a wonderful and tremendous bonus. But
Right.
as of right now, you just have to kind of move forward.
All right. So you mentioned he can make an impact right away. We've already talked about Judkins making an impact right away. I agree with you on both of those guys. In the past, the Browns have had to play rookies because they didn't have anybody to play. And but now I feel like they have four guys in this draft class that can make an impact right away, not because they have no other options, maybe at running back, but they're really talented guys. Harold Fannin Jr. we'll talk about in a minute, but their first round pick Mason Graham, after I've gotten over the initial disappointment of not drafting Travis Hunter, obviously this guy's a very talented player, and I'm expecting him to start right away. Do you think so?
Yes, I do think so. When you take someone that high in the top 5 of the NFL draft, you are starting from the jump. If you're
Yeah.
not, then something went wrong. So, yes, I think you can see him in the starting lineup right away. There's no question about that. Even Miles Garrett is really excited about this pick. He knows how much it could possibly help him to have
Right.
someone inside like that, alongside also Mike Hall, who
Yeah.
can get that interior pressure and maybe take a little bit off of Miles Garrett. So, I think that's going to be a dynamic duo there. And yeah, I think he's definitely somebody that will start right away. And and you're going to see a lot of Dylan Sampson, the other running back too.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
you're saying 4, but there actually
Yeah,
could be 5
that's
depending
true.
on what happens with one of the rookies.
That's a fair point because he'll be in the mix too at the running back position, and
Mhm.
even if he has 5 to 8 carries a game, I mean, you can make an impact big time with a handful of carries, behind Judkins. So that is going to be interesting. Fannin also at tight end. Obviously, they got Njoku, but we know Kevin Stefanski loves running 12 personnel. He did that a lot in the past. They didn't do it as much last year, but with a guy who can be so effective in the passing game, he and Njoku could be a pretty dangerous combo.
Well, they really could. And yes, they are going back this year to more 12 personnel
Hmm.
and some 13 personnel, 3
Yeah,
tight ends.
yeah,
So you will see plenty more of that and a lot less of 3 wides, which is why it wasn't as much of a priority to draft wide receivers in this draft.
yeah.
Um, so yes, Harold Fannin will be getting on the field with David Njoku. You will see that early on, and it really is an opportunity for him to make an impact right away too.
Speaking of wide receiver, they didn't draft any, as you said. But and maybe I'll regret this because the Browns obviously have not had a great track record in recent years of drafting wide receivers. However, I still have hope for Cedric Tillman. I thought, right before he got hurt, he started showing signs of life. He had a few good games in a row, and then he got hurt, and that was that. I think he's still got a chance to be, at least a solid wide receiver. Are you buying that, or are you not a believer?
Oh no, I definitely think he has that opportunity. And each year with some of these young wide receivers, the lights go on more and more. You learn how to play defenders, you watch more film. And I thought last year he really elevated his game. He took it more seriously. He was more of a professional. He studied more film. And if he continues to do that, he's just going to keep coming up the learning curve. They're very, very high on him and they like him a lot. So he just has to stay away from the concussion protocol to the extent that he can. 6 games, that's an awful lot to miss for a concussion. Hopefully, he won't get another one. But I definitely think that he is slated for another big year.
Deontay Johnson, the Browns bring him in after the draft. He's a wide receiver that early in his career with Pittsburgh, obviously had a lot of success. I mean, he had like a 1,200-yard season. He had a couple, high touchdown seasons. Last few years, the numbers have declined, and obviously last year was a disaster. He got cut by the Ravens after being traded for. He got cut by the Texans. So I'm sure he's not getting a lot of money. I haven't seen the money. I don't know if you know it. I'm guessing it's little to no guaranteed money. He's a risk only because, you had a couple of good organizations say, nah, this guy's not worth it. But I guess it's high reward, right? And not much risk because it's not a lot of money. What do you think about the move?
Well, once again, you're just kind of taking a very low risk flyer on a guy who has a lot of talent.
Yeah.
And I think that there's really almost no downside into a move like this as
Yeah.
long as he toes the line in the locker room and follows the plan and is on board with everything. As long as he does that, fine. If he doesn't do that, then he won't stick around. So
Right.
once again, when you're not playing a bunch of three wides, if he doesn't last or doesn't stick on the team, then it's really no big deal. But it's just a chance worth taking.
Rookie mini camp coming up, Mary Kay. What are you hoping to see, or what are you expecting to see from the Browns in rookie mini camp?
Well, we're not going to see a whole lot of, we're going
Mm,
to see more drills is
yeah.
what it is, because
Right.
you don't have, a whole lot of real 11 on 11s or anything like that going on. So we're going to see drills, but I like to see who passes the eyeball test. That's the first thing I always look for.
Yeah.
Who looks the part, who looks like an NFL player. Then I'm very excited to see Shedeur stacked up against Dylan. Now, I
Yeah.
have seen Dylan in person. I've seen both of these guys in person and talked to both of these guys in person. And Dylan is he's a diminutive quarterback. I mean, he is not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination, but he
Yeah.
plays big. His arm is big. So, do not sleep on Dylan Gabriel just because of his size, which I'm sure is closer to 5'10" than it is to his listed 5'11. But he plays big and he plays with moxie and he plays with confidence and he's got leadership and he started an FBS 63 FBS high 63 games in his career. He's thrown 155 touchdown passes to tie for the FBS record with Case Keenum. So he's played a lot of football. The moment isn't going to be too big for him. And I can't wait to see him stacked up against Shedeur.
Mary Kay, great to talk to you as always. She's the best, and I appreciate you taking the time this morning. Thank you for joining me.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, the great Mary Kay Cabot. Awesome chatting on this Tuesday morning with her. She always has the insight. She does a great job, and she's always so helpful, and she's always willing to come on. She's just the best hustler, and I appreciate her. She's always been great to talk to about the Browns. She's been covering the team for a long time, and so great talking with Mary Kay as always. I'm fascinated to see this Browns rookie class get on the field. I'm not going to be at mini camp, but I'm interested to see, is this the class that kind of turns it around? Because my confidence in Andrew Berry is really low, and I do like the guys they drafted. And as the week's gone on, I'm feeling better and better about this draft. But ultimately, that's all bullshit. Until they actually play, you have no idea. Even mini camp and training camp, until these guys play regular season games, you don't know how good they are. We could give draft grades all we want. None of that matters. The real draft grades are 3 years from now. What did those guys turn into? I will say I feel more optimistic about this draft than I have, for any of his previous drafts. But it would be hard not to be that way since he hasn't had a first-round pick in 4 years. And maybe I felt optimistic after his first or second draft, and I just don't remember feeling optimistic. So who knows? But I still think it's going to be tough. I don't think the Browns are going to win a ton of games this year, and it's going to take time. This division's tough. The Browns won in an unsustainable way 2 years ago. But if they're going to be competitive this season, it's going to be based on the defense and especially up front. You drafted Mason Graham 4th overall. You gave up on Travis Hunter to get Mason Graham, essentially to get Graham, Schlesinger, I guess technically Judkins. So I'll say Graham, Judkins, and a first-round pick next year. If those guys both pan out, and if the first-round pick next year, it could turn out to be a great move. But that starts with Mason Graham being great. And if the Browns are going to be competitive, their defensive line has to be dominant. That's their. I don't see. I think the Browns' chances of being over 500 are very slim. I think if you played the season 100 times, probably 98 times the Browns finish under 500. If they have any chance of hitting that 2%, it's going to be led by the defense and especially led by the defensive line. Mike Hall's got to step up this year. Mason Graham's got to be impactful as a rookie. Obviously, we know what Myles Garrett brings when he's healthy. And they got to get, good play, whether it's whoever it is ends up lining up on the other side. They rotate guys. McGuire, Ogbo, whoever it is. Who am I forgetting? I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, Alex Wright, my guy from last year who got hurt. Whichever of those guys it ends up being, they'll rotate. So I guess it's not whatever guy, but they have to be great. I think the over-under of 5.5 is right on. I think on paper, if you played the season 100 times, most of those times the Browns would win 5 or 6 games, right on around that number. But to be better than that, the defense is going to have to be great because the offense is going to be behind, and the odds of them getting even above average quarterback play is very slim this year. This is a building process. Unfortunately, it's not going to turn around right away. There you go. Browns plus 800 to make the playoffs. Want to drop $5 on that? I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but I throw $5 on the Browns making the playoffs. Crazy things have happened. All right, a few comments before we wrap up. Let's see. Page A78. Flacco, best chance to win, but only if he has a year left. Might as well play rookies. Dale says Flacco 1, Pickett 2, Shedeur 3, Gabriel 4. John, everybody starts 4 games. Another John, I think Flacco is looking great physically, so I think it's going to be hard to beat Joe for the starting position. Crazy Legs. It seems like the Browns have to at least figure out if Dylan Gabriel can be the guy. The reality is that Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders have to play this year at some point, I think. Because if the Browns are bad and they have 2 first-round picks and they have access, if they end up having access to drafting a potentially superstar quarterback, you have to know if these guys are worth passing on a quarterback for. You want to know. Otherwise, you wasted the picks. Jimmy W., I like Carson. It's a good story. I hope he contributes. Page A, Carson will be all over the field cracking helmets. Roger, the team needs more dynamic linebackers. Why do people dismiss that position? People don't know football. Speaking of linebackers that were popular for the Browns and cracked a lot of helmets and for a 4-year stretch was a good, solid linebacker, made a lot of tackles, made 1 Pro Bowl. One of my favorite Browns, Joe Schobert, who just retired, I want to say 2 years ago, is going to be joining me probably next week here in the bullpen. I texted my guy Monzo, and I was like, let's see if we could, get Joe Schobert. I used to love talking to Joe. When Joe was on the Browns, Dustin and I would be at Browns camp all the time, and I would always talk to Joe. He was always awesome to talk with. One of my top 5 favorite Browns since I've been covering the team. And then he bounced around for a few years after the Browns. But, 7-year career I think he had. That's double the average career. And I was a big Joe fan. He was always super nice to me. And so we tracked him down. He said he would be happy to come on. So I think next week we'll probably have him in the bullpen. So I'm excited about that. Jetson says, love the show. Thank you, Jetson. Page A says, Tillman was beast mode with Winston. Yeah, he was. Tilsa Lisa, Flacco fever in the CLE. Brian, it would be bad for the Browns if they won a lot of games this year. I understand what you're saying from a draft perspective, yes. But what if they won a lot of games because either Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders turned out to be a great quarterback? Then it wouldn't be bad. Jimmy says, I almost think Berry traded down so he didn't have to be held accountable for Henry or Carter busting. I don't agree with that. But I understand conspiracy theories at this point. Chantel, if the Browns are so impressed with Pickett, why didn't they pick up his 5th year in the deal? They need to play rookie, see what they got. Yeah, they were never gonna. I don't agree. Like Jason and Mary Kay and Aditi, 3 people I respect as much as anybody, all think the Browns are enamored with Kenny Pickett. I'm not buying they're as enamored as they all think they are. But we've argued that already. Nobody was going to pick up that option. It's over $20 million. Nobody's going to ever pick that up. Nobody's enamored with him that much. Loverboy Charlie, if they're in tank mode, they're going to put in a new quarterback every 1 to 3 games. They can't. If they're all healthy, they'd have to keep all 4 on the roster. Otherwise, they're going to lose them, which they won't do. Amber, not at some point. They have to play early and give Shedeur and Dillon reps. Christopher, Shedeur better than Lamar. Doubt it. I seriously doubt it. Mr. Brown, Sanders went in the 5th for a reason. He's not an NFL quarterback. I don't agree with that either. And Happy Camper says, go home, Christopher, you're drunk. That's fair. Tommy Pinkston, the Bengals aren't going to the playoffs either. Overrated quarterback and shitty. I think he meant to say shitty D, but it says shifty D. Maybe they won't. I think they will, but maybe they won't. Nothing's guaranteed. Sean, Sanders is going to be traded. I hope he does great, but I think he's going to be traded. Why would he be traded? Nobody else wanted him at this point. All right, thanks, everybody, for joining me today. But this is not it. I got a busy day here, both at Bet Rivers and UCSS. Join me next at 11 a.m. on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show with Tyvis Powell, Angie Bush, and Mikey McNuggets and the guys. Then, at 2 o'clock, I make my debut on Betting Weekly Hardball. I'll be on every Tuesday through Thursday with Doug Kazarian from 2 o'clock till whenever, 2:30, 2:45. If you're a baseball bettor or a baseball fan, join us live here with Bet Rivers, 2 o'clock today and every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The show's on Monday through Friday. Doug Kazarian, longtime ESPN bet guy. He's great. Did a good job yesterday on the first show. And we'll be on together today. And then I'll close the day with a Cavs live postgame right back here in the bullpen. And we'll hopefully the Cavs' 3 banged-up top players will all play, including Darius Garland, and the Cavs can get back on track with a win. That's tonight. So a lot to get to. I got a Little League game today. All kinds of crazy stuff going on. All right, so make sure you join me live for all these things, including, as you see, the postgame. Make sure you check out the Bet Rivers app if you're not using it already. I'm going to have a bunch of picks on the baseball betting show at 2 that you can make those bets right here at Bet Rivers. Thanks, everybody, for joining me. Love you all. Thanks to Max and Z. Talk to you next time. Where else but right here in the bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody.